Hello, welcome to Lanson's channel. My channel focuses on solo travel combined with history, culture, and politics, which is quite a unique combination you don't often see on YouTube. In 2021, due to the massive lockdown in China, I was unfortunately stuck inside and unable to leave the country. During this period when I couldn't explore the world, I wondered what I could do. That's when a plan came to my mind. I decided to cycling to the birthplace of Communist China and retrace the entire route of the famous historical event known as the Long March. Let me give you a brief background about myself. I grew up in China until age 15 and then immigrated to Australia and New Zealand. So, my cultural identity is a half Chinese and half Western. Although I have studied history extensively, it has been 15 years since I personally lived on China's land, so my understanding to my mother country is limited. But that's normal. Nowadays even people living inside China cannot fully understand China. Initially, I thought filming this theme would be a successful project, since it combines elements of wilderness survival, similar to Bear Grylls, with historical and cultural contents, which is quite unique and no one had done it before. I am the first Chinese travel vlogger under age 30 to accomplish this. If you don't believe it, you can search online and see if anyone else has done the same thing. However, this journey ultimately got me completely banned on China's internet, and my account on China version YouTube with 300,000 followers got permanently suspended. Why did that happen? After this incident, I finally gained a fully understanding of the political situation inside China today. I have followed the Chinese proverb, read 1,000 books, travel 1,000 miles, but obviously nowadays inside China, they are trying so hard to stop you seeking the truth. If you are watching this video and have limited knowledge about China's current situation or have some interest in ancient Chinese history, I invite you to follow my journey. This series will have totally 30 episodes, a solo bicycle trip with distance over 2,000 kilometers, the difficulty, knowledge content, and the 100% real stories made my series as good as Discovery Channel. Day 1. My journey starts from Guangzhou, where I will take a green train to reach Ruijin, the temporary capital of the Soviet Red Army in 1934. Ruijin has now become a small Tier 5 small county town with a population of only 600,000. Compared to 2010, the population has even decreased by 10,000. This is the economic situation for most of Chinese county towns. While China appears to have a population of 1.4 billion, the majority of people flee to Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities to make a living, which create 300 million migrant workers who are far away from their hometowns, resulting in a sharp decline in the population of these areas. Every country has its affluent and impoverished sides, especially a vast country like China with a massive population. The wealth gap is enormous. The green train means the low-speed train in China, with many carriages not updated since the 1980s. It usually connects these economically backward Tier 5 county towns. Since these towns have little economic importance, the government doesn't want to invest any high-speed railways there. So, even if I had the money, I couldn't buy a high-speed train to Ruijin because it simply isn't an option. This is entirely different from what you usually see on YouTube, where Western vloggers praise and admire China's high-speed trains. Their footage usually only bring you to Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities, let alone Tier 5 areas. The passengers on the green train clearly have a lower level of manners and education. They take off their shoes, exposing their smelly socks. They rudely play TikTok at maximum volume, ignoring your unpleasant gaze. Since everyone behaves like this, you can't argue with them, because there are hundreds of uncivilized them and only one civilized you, so you can't do anything about it. I can only endure the extremely noisy environment the whole night. I can hardly fall asleep. My bicycle and other equipment were also transported by the green train, but I need to wait another 2 days. So, I will use this time to visit the historical sites related to the Red Army in 1934. Also, I will spend some time exploring the town center to see how people's life and economic activities here. Day 2. Today, I arrived at the historic site of Soviet temporary government of the Red Army in 1934. I won't recite those boring introductions on the wall because they are extremely dull and every Chinese has forced to recite it when in middle school. Those propaganda has no improvement at all in many years. Moreover, in recent years, there has been increasing censorship, not allowing even a single word to be changed. So, as we walk, let's discuss some of the society changes that Westerners might not be aware of in recent years. As we all know, the Long March was a military retreat undertaken by the Chinese Red Army to evade the pursuit of the National Army, covering a distance of 9,000 kilometers. Due to the intense battles at the time, there were no official historians recording everything along the way. In 1936, after Mao Zedong and his followers arrived in northern part of China, Mao ordered his educated subordinates who experienced the Long March to write diaries, recalling the dramatic stories of the past year. Eventually, around 200 manuscripts were collected by October 1936. After going through editorial censoring, they became the 300,000-word Red Army's Long March Chronicle, which is the original historical source for all the Red Army's Long March stories that we see today. Of course, as the Chinese Communist Party grew stronger later on, the 300,000-word story was not enough to meet the extensive propaganda needs. So, they expanded it to 3 million words, and more, which were all literary fabrications and not historical facts because those who carried out the later editing were not personally participated in the Long March. Let's take a simple example. In a typical Red Army story, there will be a division commander named who experienced the Long March. However, in the artistic processing, the story will be expanded to Commander A freeze to death in order to give the blanket to Little Red Army Soldier B. But this story is fake, and the other characters in the story are fictional. We all know that Western books strictly differentiate between fiction and non-fiction. But when faced with the mixture of truth and fiction in Communist Party stories, how do you define it? Of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the manipulation of historical materials by almost all communist regime. If you're familiar with Soviet Russian history, you will know how much fake material is contained within its history. Furthermore, all revolutionary stories of the Chinese Communist Party go through strict censorship. As an ordinary citizen, you can only parrot and recite without questioning or changing a single word. Nowadays, even mentioning the process of how the original memories were expanded into fairy tales is not allowed. Professors who enlighten me about these processes have been soft bans and silencing inside the Great Firewall. Their lecture recording can only be seen on YouTube, but got all deleted inside China. Due to the long-term and systematic repetition of false stories, most young Chinese today believe that everything they see in these museums is true. They are unaware that 99% of the texts are pure fabrication. In recent years, the Chinese Communist Party has enacted the Martyrs' Law, which considers any disrespectful behavior about martyrs as a criminal offense. Even if I'm repeating the above descriptions from professors, as I did earlier, saying you are just making up stories is considered a crime inside China's wall. If a story features both a real Soldier A and a fictional Little Soldier B, then this fictional character, Little Red Army Soldier B, is also protected under the Martyrs' Law. You cannot question this character or suggest that they do not exist in real history, as it would violate the law. This new law directly leads to the complete absence of any space for discussing such topics inside China. These topics have completely disappeared. Of course, I wasn't aware of these insights from the beginning. It wasn't until the middle to later stages of my journey when I saw that almost all the museums had almost identical texts, literally 100% identical, that I start to realize that something was wrong. Since I have also visited many museums and art galleries in Europe, I would like to ask, which two museums in Europe have 100% identical texts and contents? If the texts in a museum are 100% repetitive, can it still be considered a museum? It only deserves quotation marks. CCP used this type of fake museums to fulfill Chinese people's mind. After completing the entire journey, I spent 2 years researching to gain the insights I have today. You might be curious about how other Chinese people interpret the museums and historical sites in front of them. I can describe it briefly. The first category is people aged 50 and above. This people's mind is pretty red. They were typically born in 1960s and were still children during the 10 years of the brutal Cultural Revolution, so most of them did not personally participate in the political nightmare. Moreover, from 1980 to 2019, China's economy was on the rise trend, leading to a year-on-year improvement in their material well-being. As a result, they generally won't question the negative aspects of the whole system. Nowadays, you can see them happily dressing and cosplaying as Red Army soldiers, visiting these places during their retirement, enjoying their retirement income, which is usually higher than younger people, and having plenty of free time. The second category is the generation born after 1995, who coincided with Xi Jinping's rise to power and China's rapid turn towards dictatorship. These young people who are still in school are subjected to strong intensity of patriotic brainwashing education every day. Therefore, even though part of young people may resent political education, they have grown up inside this Truman's world, where they see this boring political education as a necessary part of life. Like eating and drinking. Naturally, very few of them will realize and resist it. The third category is the generation born between 1980 and 1995, which is my age group. We are the only generation who have seen the world with our own eyes. During our adolescence, there was no great firewall, and we could freely watch European and American TV series. Therefore, we tend to have a much more freedom mindset compared to the other two groups. However, considering the legal restraints, the majority of this age group can only be angry but silent. Among this group, there is perhaps only 1 in a million, like me, who dare to turn this China's reality into videos and tells it to the Western world just for the sake of my justice and ideals. I hope this episode will help you understand China more. See you in the next one. Bye.